Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Holly Worton. I've been an entrepreneur since 1999, and I know firsthand how difficult it can be to build a business without the right mindset. This is a podcast for those of us who struggle with showing up in our business with confidence and authenticity, who resist taking big action because of fears and doubts, who know deep down that it's possible to create something bigger, and yet you're not. This podcast combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business more easily in a way that feels aligned. This podcast features solo shows with me and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world, including my monthly co-hosted episodes with Joe Casey. My goal is to help you grow your business more quickly and easily by transforming your mindset. For me, mindset work is a lifelong practice, and I want to help you make a habit out of mindset work. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 265. This is your host, Holly Worton, and I'm back with another solo episode. Today, I'm going to talk about writing and books. And I'm going to talk about how to know if you should write a book, how to know if it's the right time for you to write a book, and how to get the mindset you need to write your book if you decide that you want to. Now, this was inspired because, as you may know, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, I've written and self-published 8 books. 4 books on business mindset and 4 books on my walking adventures. And it's been a wonderful process, and I'm so glad I've self-published rather than deciding to seek out a traditional publisher. I know absolutely without a doubt that's the right path for me. And I'm very happy with the way things are going. I've just hired a new book launch coach to help me with my next launch of my second edition of my Business Beliefs book. I'm really excited about the way things are going with my writing, and I look forward to writing more and more and more books because I love writing. So it's very clear to me that writing is the right thing to me. In fact, as you know, if you listen to some of my episodes from earlier this year, my focus this year and for the foreseeable future is to focus more on helping people with business mindset more through my books and my writing than through one-to-one sessions. So I'm focusing my time on writing books, and when clients come in for one-to-one work, I will continue to do that, but my main focus is on my writing because I can help more people that way. So writing books is right for me. It's what I love. It's what I'm going to continue to do. And I'm very happy that I have chosen to focus on that. But the thing is, you may have noticed that everyone seems to be writing a book these days. And there are several reasons for that. All the marketing experts are promoting writing books as a way of being seen as an expert in a subject, of driving traffic to your one-to-one work and your online programs, of getting speaking engagements based on your book, of getting media attention based on your book, which of course will also attract attention to the other offerings that you have in your business. It can be a really great lead-in to getting people to work with you or to buy your other stuff if you have online courses and that kind of thing. So it's being promoted as a good thing to do. Also, we are in the golden age of self-publishing. Self-publishing no longer has the bad reputation that it had for many years when people used to refer to it as vanity publishing. There are some really good writers who are self-publishing. And writers who have traditionally been published by traditional publishers are getting very disgruntled with the treatment by traditional publishers. It's not what it used to be. Self-publishing, a lot of them are turning to self-publishing, and self-publishing is seen as a very viable route for writers who used to be traditionally published, no longer want to do that. And it's just, we have the technology. Like, it's easier and easier and easier every year to self-publish a book, or to be an independent publisher of your books. Because of course, you shouldn't be doing everything yourself. You should be hiring people to help you with stuff like the editing and the cover and that kind of thing. That's a whole different topic. So I wanted to get started by talking about how you should know if you should write a book or not, or if it's time for you to write a book, or if it's the right time for you to write a book. And I think there are a number of questions that you need to ask yourself. First of all, do you want to write a book? Do you really want to write a book? Or is it a should? Or do you just like the idea of having a book that you've written and seeing your name on Amazon as an author? And this is a really important question because it's a lot of work to write a book. I get a lot of work done on my workcation weekends where I go away and I very intensively work on a book. I use the workation weekends to work on writing my first drafts, of editing and producing, second, third drafts. I get a lot done on my workation weekends. However, most people don't have time to go away for a weekend and just write. Or most people don't make the time to do that. Now, there's some people who, like me, need large chunks of time in order to really get into a book and get the work done and get the words on the page. Other people are capable of writing an hour a day. But I think it's safe to say that very few people are actually willing to put in an hour a day to work on a book. So the question is, are you willing to put in the work to create a book? Now, beauty of self-publishing, one of the beauties of self-publishing is that you can write a book of any length. So you could write a full-length nonfiction book is usually based between 40,000 and 50,000 words. But you can do whatever you want because you don't need to fit into some publisher's box of what's marketable for them. There are lots of business owners, and Kat Laterzo, who was a guest on this podcast, is a great example of someone who releases very small, short, sweet, and actionable and motivational ebooks on Amazon. She is a fantastic example of this because she's released so many books. And these are kind of like extended blog posts, I want to say, because they're very short books, but they're really focused and really well done. So check her out as an example of what you could do if you wanted to write very short books. And that's something that I started with my model of business mindset books, but now I'm starting to realize I want to make them more in-depth. So I'm doing that with second editions. However, I still have a whole series of ideas for very short ebooks that I want to continue doing as well. So I think what my books in the future look like to me are a mix of really in-depth, longer books on business mindset, but also the short and sweet books. So again, Kat Laterzo, I'm going to link to her in the show notes. Check her out to get an idea of the kinds of ebooks that she has produced, because I think she's a really good example of this. So are you willing to put in the work it takes to write a book? Because even if you do write shorter books like Kat does, and a lot of other people do, you're going to need to market the books, and you're going to need to write them, and you're going to need to publish them. And you can get help from a VA, of course, in setting up the books on Amazon. You can get help with, and you should get help with designing a professional cover and getting them edited and proofread and all that good stuff. But it still takes time. You're still going to have to manage the project and do the writing. So are you willing to put in the work? Next, why do you want to write a book? Like, what do you hope to get from writing a book? What do you think it's going to give you? Do you think it's going to raise your profile? Do you think it's going to make you famous? Do you think it's going to make people see you as a leader in your field? Do you think it's going to get you new clients? Do you think it's going to get people buying your online programs? What do you want to get from writing this book? Because hopefully it will lead on to something. So why do you want to write a book? What are your reasons? And are your reasons for wanting to write a book reasonable? Like, is it reasonable to assume that you're going to become super famous from just writing one book? Maybe if you put in the work to market it and hire a book launch coach and you get tons of publicity for it, maybe. But maybe not. Are your expectations reasonable? This is really, really important to consider as well. Because most writers don't make a lot of money from their books, whether they are traditionally published or self-published, or independently published, I should be saying. You need to put in a lot of time and energy and sometimes money to market your book to get those readers. And not everyone's willing to do that. So while Amazon is a great way for people to find you, there's a lot you need to do to be easily searchable on Amazon. So in the same way that you would do SEO for your website and use keywords and that kind of thing, you need to do the same thing with your books. Finally, and I've hinted at this in the last few minutes, are you willing to put in the time and effort and sometimes money to market a book? Marketing a book is like anything else. It's like marketing your podcast episodes, it's like marketing your blog posts, it's like marketing your webinars, your online programs, your one-to-one courses. You need to invest time and effort and sometimes money if you're going to do advertising or that kind of thing to market your book. You're going to have to build that time into your calendar and really plan for it to make sure that it happens. So those are some questions that you need to ask yourself, and I will post these questions in the show notes. So you can look for those there. So hopefully you should have an idea now of whether you should write a book or not, and how you feel about that, and what your expectations are, and what you want to get out of it. And is it right for you? Because, well, I think probably just about everyone is capable of writing a book. That doesn't mean that you should. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you have a bunch of ideas and you just don't want to do the writing. Now, if you don't want to do the writing, but you really want to have a book, there is a very obvious way to get that done, and that's by using a ghostwriter. And there are plenty of ghostwriters out there, plenty of people who can write your book for you. All you need to do is give them kind of guidelines, bullet points, what you want to say, and you can pay for someone to have your book written for you. People do that all the time. So that's another option if you want to have a book, but not necessarily write it. So one of the next things I wanted to talk about was how to know that it's the right time for you to write your book. Is the timing good? And that's an issue of, do you have the time to write a book? Do you have the time to write an hour a day or 8 hours on the weekends or whatever? Can you fit the time in your schedule? That's one very important thing. Can you fit the marketing and the launching into your schedule? And do you have an audience of people to market this book to? Now, even if you don't have an audience, even if you don't have blog readers or website visitors or podcast listeners or people watching your YouTube channel, I don't think that means that you shouldn't write a book. I just think that means that you need to be clear on your expectations because, again, you're going to have to do a lot of work to market this book. You're going to need to do extra work if you don't have a community of people to buy the book because you're going to have to be expanding yourself out into new communities to get new people that don't know you currently to buy the book. So, again, if you have a small community, that's not a no. No, you shouldn't write your book, but it's kind of a call for you to manage your expectations. So, how do you know it's the right time for you to write a book? Intuition, gut feeling. There's something in the back of your head that's been telling you to write a book. Have you been getting those intuitive nudges to write a book? Have people been telling you over and over and over again to write a book, that you need to write a book, that you need to tell your story? If so, what's stopping you from doing it? And I think that's a very important question to ask because I know a lot of people who have wanted to write a book for their entire lives or for a certain amount of time, but they haven't done it. So what is stopping you from writing that book? That's a really important question for you to ask. It is not a rhetorical question. If you want to write a book and you haven't done it, why not? And if you need to pause this podcast now and get clear on the answer, do it. If you want to journal on it, do it, but do whatever you need to do to get clear on that answer. And that leads me into kind of the next part of this podcast episode, which is how to get the mindset you need to write your book. Now, a lot of people want to write a book, but haven't because of mindset stuff. Self-sabotage, fear of visibility, fear of taking action, fears that what are people going to think? What are they going to say about me? Fears of bad reviews on Amazon. Maybe they believe that they don't have anything interesting or important or useful to say. Or maybe they think that, who am I to write a book? Who am I to tell my story? Who am I to tell any story? There's so much mind crap that can come up when we actually sit down to think about why haven't we written that book. And if you've read either of my first two books on business mindset, business beliefs, and business blocks, you know that several of the categories of business beliefs are relevant here when it comes to looking at your current business mindset as it relates to your ability or your beliefs about your ability to write a book. So action and goals is the first category. So what do you believe about your ability to take on a big project like a book and make it happen? Do you believe that you have the consistency to put in the work and take the action to make this possible and to get the book finished? Next category is change and growth. And things will change when you become an author, when you have written a book. You will have grown as a person, you will have grown as a writer, you will have grown as an entrepreneur. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with having an author profile on Goodreads? Or does that freak you out? Are you okay with having an author profile on Amazon? Or does that feel like, who am I to have an author profile on Amazon? What does that bring up for you? Confidence and self-trust is the fourth category. And do you trust in your abilities to write a book? Do you have the confidence to say what you want to say in a book? Do you have the confidence to speak your truth, to tell your story? That's a big thing. Fifth category is creativity. What are your beliefs around your creative abilities? Do you believe that you're a good writer? Do you believe that you're a bad writer? Do you believe that you can write something as long as a book? And again, remember, it doesn't have to be long. It can be any length you want if you're going to go the independent publishing route. Leadership and outsourcing is the sixth category. Now, outsourcing, as I've said before, you're going to want to outsource and get an editor, a proofreader. You're going to want to outsource the book cover. Please do not attempt to design the book cover yourself in Canva. It's going to look like shit unless you're a graphic designer. Sorry to be as blunt as that, but seriously, you want to hire a graphic designer who has experience in doing book covers and preferably who specializes in doing book covers so that they can design a book that looks like a book cover. I've said this many times before, and I'm going to keep on saying it because it's really, really important. I often see people sharing their book covers online, and it's something that they've clearly designed themselves, and it looks unprofessional. If people have never heard of you and they see a very homemade looking book cover on Amazon, they're not going to buy the book because they're going to think, the cover looks like shit. What's the inside going to be like? And we've all heard the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. But in many cases, absolutely you should. Because if the author hasn't put the time and energy to finding and getting a professional to do the book cover, then maybe they haven't spent much time making sure that the inside of the book is as polished as it could be or should be. So outsourcing. The other half of this category is leadership. So when you step up as a writer and you write your business book or other book, you're stepping up as a thought leader and saying, this is what I believe. I've put it down into words and I'm selling it to you as a book. That's a big thing. And I think that freaks out a lot of people. So what are your beliefs about your ability to stand up and speak as a thought leader in your field, in your area of expertise? Does that freak you out? If it does, write that down. You should be writing all this stuff down. Like if anything of what I'm saying triggers anything for you, write it down because that's going to help you dredge up to the surface the mind crap that is not serving you and that is keeping you blocked from writing your book. Next, learning. Whether you go the independent publishing route or the traditional publishing route, there's going to be a lot that you're going to need to learn. So you're going to need to learn how to write a book, how to edit your book, how to work with an editor, how to work with a graphic designer, how to work with blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of stuff that you need to learn. And all the information is out there. There is so much information out there, but you're going to need to learn stuff. So what are your beliefs about your ability to learn what you need to learn to be a good writer and to write a book and to get your book out there? Do you believe that you can learn what needs to be learned? Next, marketing and sales. Do you believe in your ability to market your book effectively? To get a good amount of sales of your book so that you can either make money from your book and or get clients from the back of readers reading your book? Personal power is another category in my books. It takes guts to stand in your personal power and stand up and speak and write your book, tell your story, share your thoughts, share your experiences, and share your ideas and theories and concepts. Are you ready for that? Are you willing to do that? What are your beliefs about your ability to stand in your personal power and put a book out? Next category is strategy, clarity, and vision. So writing a book and releasing a book is a project. It's a business project. What do you believe about your ability to create a strategy to market the book and to manage the project of the book? And do you have clarity on what you want to say in the book? And do you have a vision for this book? And what are your beliefs about your ability to have a clear strategy and vision for your book? Because this isn't just something that you write and you get it out there and there it is. Like you need to put some effort into it. Next is success and opportunities. What if your book is wildly successful and you get tons of media coverage and tons of people wanting to interview you and tons of people wanting to feature you in articles, and you get really well known based on this book that you've written, and you get all these new opportunities coming to you? How's that going to feel? Does that scare you, or does that feel exciting? Sometimes that can freak us out. Fear of success. Do you have a fear of success? And what are your beliefs about your ability to see opportunities when they come your way? The 14th category is value and self-worth. Do you believe that your stories have value? Do you believe that your beliefs have value? Do you believe that your theories and your concepts have value? Do you believe that you are enough to write a book, that you are enough to tell your stories? You are enough to get your thoughts out there in book form. And finally, the 15th category is visibility. And you may have noticed that I skipped some categories because I felt that they weren't really relevant to book writing, but almost all of them were. There are so many aspects of our mindset that come into play when we look at writing a book. So visibility. How do you feel about getting out there and being visible with your book? I'm going to be honest, it freaked me out. My first book, I mentioned it online, mentioned it on Facebook. I was excited about putting it out there, but also a little freaked out. So I probably didn't market it anywhere near as much as I could have, which is why I'm really excited to be updating the book and relaunching it, because I know it's a helpful book. I know it's a useful book. And I know I was really freaked out about marketing it and being visible with it, which is also why I've hired someone to help me with the book launch, to do the stuff I need to do to get the thing out there. The visibility freaked me out. And also the vulnerability. I was really scared of getting bad reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. And I do have bad reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. I also have good reviews. But we have to be willing to accept the bad with the good. Because not everyone's going to love what we do. Not everyone's going to love our book. I mean, have you loved 100% of books that you have read in your life? Probably not. I haven't. There's some books that I've read that I couldn't stand. I thought they were awful. So some people aren't going to like it, and that's totally fine. But we need to be ready, willing, and able to receive those negative reviews, because if we don't put ourselves out there and open ourselves up to receive the negative reviews as well as the positive ones, then we're just going to be like hiding in the dark corner of our office trying to do our thing, but silently, so that no one knows what we're doing. So visibility is a big part of writing a book. So I hope that those questions and kind of going through those categories has helped you get clear on what your current mindset is in relation to your ability to write a book and get it out there and market the thing. If you have any questions, please get in touch. Please let me know. Next, I want to talk through some of the next steps you can take to get started writing your book. So I recommended that you check out Cat Laterzo on Amazon. I think there's a lot of other really good resources out there that you can use. 4 of the previous podcast episodes on this show are related to book writing. So episode 155 I did with Joe Casey, and it was about how to get a book out of your head and onto Amazon. It has a downloadable transcript, and it's a great episode on kind of the steps that you need to take to self-publish your book. And I think that's a really great place to get started because it gives you kind of an overview of what the process is like. Prior to that, episode 144 with Helena Black was about how to create your signature book for your business. This is another great episode. She is an expert on this, and I think you'll find it really, really useful. Before that, episode 126 with Sylvie McCracken was about how to create passive income through ebooks. Another really good episode that I encourage you to check out. Finally, way back, episode 63, Michelle DeFilippo was on the show, and we talked about how to self-publish a book that looks professional. And I think that's really important. Like I said, your book needs to look professional. It needs to have good cover. It needs to have good typesetting. It needs to be properly formatted for ebook. And that's all really, really important. So those are some good episodes that you can do to kind of get started listening and, looking into the process of writing a book and self-publishing. Also, I always talk about her, but the expert on this is Joanna Penn, who has an excellent podcast called The Creative Pen. I will link to her, and I will link to all of this in the show notes. She is the expert on independent publishing. She has a great podcast, a really, really thorough blog with tons of information. Do check her out. Next, other stuff that you can do in addition to doing your research. So listen, you can start out by listening to these other episodes on books and writing. Answer the questions above that we talked about at the beginning of this episode. Do you really want to write a book? Are you willing to put in the effort? Why? What are your expectations? All that stuff. And those 6 questions are in the show notes. So answer those questions. Next, write down a list of things that you could write a book about. Once I started writing a list of all the books I wanted to write, I kept having more and more and more and more and more ideas. Next, block out time in your calendar to write the book, launch the book, and market the book so that you know it's in there. And finally, start writing and keep writing until you finish. Now, another thing that I neglected to mention earlier when I said if you want to have a book but not write a book, you can get a ghostwriter. You can also take transcripts from your podcast episodes, from other audio stuff that you've done, and turn that into a book. Now, you're going to have to edit the transcripts, but that's another way to write a book. And Denise Duffield Thomas once said, I forget whether it was for her first book, Lucky Bitch, or whether it was for Get Rich, Lucky Bitch. One of those books she created from audio files that she had where she had talked about all that stuff. And she got the transcripts done, got the transcripts edited, went through it herself, and turned audio stuff into one of her books. So that's another thing you could do. Get transcripts done. If you have like a lot of online courses, or if you have a lot of audio stuff from a podcast or from whatever, you can use your audio files to write a book. And in fact, part of my first book, Business Beliefs, there's one chapter in there that started out as a podcast episode, and I got the transcript done from that, and I turned that into one of the chapters for the book. So that's another really, really good way to create a book if you don't want to write a book, but you do want to have a book. So I wanted to mention that again before I wrap this episode up. So, as always, I hope you found this interesting and useful. You can please drop me a line. Let me know what you thought of this episode. If you have any questions, you can email me at holly@hollyworton.com or join me in the Facebook group and ask me there. If you head to hollyworton.com/group, you will be redirected to the Facebook group. Also, I would love to see you on Patreon. If you head to hollyworton.com/Patreon, you can join me there. Membership starts at just $1 a month, and you'll get exclusive access to content that I won't be sharing anywhere else, including a monthly Q&A and my afterthoughts for this podcast. Often think of extra things to add after I finish an episode, and I will be creating extra mini episodes when I share those bits and pieces. So thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. It would mean the world to me. I will be back next week with another solo episode. And remember to visit hollyworton.com/265 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for the topics that were discussed, at hollyworton.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and learn more about business mindset, join my private community for entrepreneurs at hollyworton.com/group. That will redirect you to the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you so much.